Hello students. Today we are going to start with the heterotrophic modes of nutrition in plants. So we know that first we will understand what is the meaning of heterotrophs. Hetero means others, other, and trophos means nutrition. In the beginning of this chapter we have understood the meaning of this term. Now what is the heterotrophic mode of nutrition? The mode of nutrition in which an organism cannot make its own food and depends directly or indirectly on autotrophs, that is green plants, for their food, is known as heterotrophic nutrition. Fine. Now like plants and other animals and human beings, there are some plants also who depend on other plant and animals for obtaining food. So for this there are various methods selected by the plants. They have adopted these methods to obtain their food. So the very first method is saprophytic nutrition. Saprophytic nutrition is that mode of nutrition in which non-green plants obtain their nutrients from dead and decaying organic matters of plant and animals. Now here sapro word means rotten. Phytic word is coming from the plants. Now there are the plants which use saprophytic mode of nutrition are called saprophytes. For example, Indian pipe and coral roots. How do they do so? These saprophytic plants, they derive nutrition from dead and decaying organic matter. Then they release digestive juices on the dead and decaying matter. These juices convert organic matter into liquid form. Then they absorb this liquid and obtain nutrition from it. The other examples of saprophytic plants are monotropa, mushrooms and bread molds. So this is all about the saprophytic nutrition and plants. Next comes the parasitic nutrition. The figure which you see here is about cuscuta. It is a non-green plant. It does not have chlorophyll. It cannot make its own food. It is long, yellowish thread-like stems. You can see yellowish thread-like stems all over the other plant. You can see they have reached and almost covered it. Fine. So the thread-like stems twine around the stem and branches of a tree on which it climbs. Now it has a special structure or a root, you can say, that we called as hostoria, which pierces into the host, that is the plant on which the parasite grows and obtains nutrition, on which it is climbing for absorbing ready-made food. So when the hostoria pierces inside the plant, it absorbs the food and water from the host plant. Fine. So this kind of mode of nutrition in which an organism derives ready-made food from the body of another living organism is called parasitic nutrition. There are two types of parasites, that is the total parasite and partial parasites. Total parasites are completely dependent on the host for food and water. Partial parasites are the ones those plant which are green in color, but they are green in color, so they make their own food, but for water and minerals they are dependent on their host. So this kind of parasitic plants are called as partial parasites, and whereas the ones which are dependent for entire food, water and minerals, they are called as total parasites. Clear, children? Next we come on to the insectivorous plants. Now insectivorous plants are insect eating plants. Now why do they feed on insects? These insectivorous plants are green plants generally, but to fulfill their nitrogen requirements they feed on insects. Therefore what do? They prepare their own food by the process of photosynthesis, but for preparing proteins, they cannot get nitrogen from the surroundings. So the insects on which they feed fulfill their nitrogen requirement. The most common example is the pitcher plant. The picture which is on screen, you can see that is of the pitcher plant. In pitcher plant, what happens? The leaf lamina is modified to form a pitcher-like structure. The apex of the leaf is modified into a lid which can open and close the mouth of the pitcher. As you can see in the figure, a housefly is stuck onto the lid. Okay, so this lid can be opened and closed. Fine. Then these inside the pitcher, there are hairs which are directed towards downwards. Okay, when an insect lands in the pitcher, the lid closes and the trapped inside gets entangled, and they are trapped, and that insects get entangled in the hair which is present inside the pitcher, okay, plant. The insect then are digested by the help of digestive juices which is secreted inside the pitcher plant. Okay, the other examples of insectivorous plants other than pitcher plant can be Utricularia, Venus flytrap, and Drosera. Clear, children? Now we come on to the other mode of having the nutrition, that is the other mode of heterotrophic nutrition, that is symbiosis. Here in the figure, I'm showing you on the left side figure is of a lichens, and the right side figure you can see the structure of root nodules. Fine. So first we will talk about the lichens. Now what are these lichens? These lichens are actually very amazing forms of life. Okay, why do we say amazing? Because it is not one plant. Okay, actually it is composed of two distinct organisms. One part is an algae and the other part is the fungus. Okay, what do? They live together, working together. The algae contains chlorophyll because they are green in color, so they are capable of making their own food. Whereas the fungus, we know that they are non-green plants, okay, and they are not able to make their own food. But yes, they are really able to absorb water and minerals from the plant, okay, for the plant. So what do? They live mutually. Fungus provides protection and water and minerals to the algae. When the algae receives water and minerals from the fungus, then it prepares the food and shares with the fungus. So this kind of mutual association in which two different types of organisms, they live together, okay, and they work together for the mutual benefit, is called as symbiosis. Here the mutual benefit is what? Algae is preparing the food and sharing with the fungus, okay, and fungus is absorbing the water and minerals and sharing with the algae. So this is how they are mutually benefiting each other. The second example we see about the root nodules. These root nodules are actually found in the leguminous plants, mostly found in the leguminous plant, in which they have nitrogen fixing roots also, we can say about this. Okay, what do? They have they live in combination with the rhizobium bacteria, a kind of a bacteria, okay, which has a special property. Okay, what do they do? As we know that the nitrogen available in the surroundings, in the atmosphere, is not capable of any usage by plants, because it is not in that form. So it has to be converted into a soluble form that the plant can consume it and receive the you can say protein requirement by it. Okay, so what do? Rhizobium bacteria and leguminous plants, okay, they live together. Rhizobium bacteria are non-green plants which live in our root nodules of leguminous plants like gram, pea, moong. Okay, these bacteria cannot make their own food. Okay, so what do? They are dependent on the plant for food, but in return these rhizobium bacteria, they trap the atmospheric nitrogen and convert it into the soluble form, okay, which are taken up by the plant. Okay, so in return the plant is providing food and shelter to these rhizobium. So both organisms benefit from each other with this method. What is the rhizobium bacteria doing? trapping the nitrogen, converting it into the soluble nitrates form in which the plant can utilize that nitrogen, okay, and in return it is getting the food prepared by the plant. Nitrogen, you must remember, nitrogen is one of the macronutrients required by the plants. Now we come on to the last topic of this chapter, that is food chain and food web. Okay, first figure you can see what is a food chain. Food chain means the plant is eaten by deer, deer is eaten by a lion, okay, and lion, when they die, they are buried or they are decomposed, okay, and they go back, they are converted into soluble form, they go back into the soil, and from the soil plants derive them as a nutrients, okay, and they grow. So this is what is all about the food chain. Food web, when we talk about food web, okay, so the food chains, when they are linked, many food chains, when they are linked together, okay, then they form a web like structure which is called as food web, okay. So we were talking about the food chain and food web, fine. So food chain, all the food chains begin with the plants. Plants make their own food with the help of energy obtained from the sun, okay, and some animals eat plants or plant parts called primary consumer, and some eat the other animals called secondary consumer. So this process of eating and being eaten is called as food chain. When many of these food chain come together and they form a web like structure, that is called, then they become the food web, okay. So this is all about the food chain and food web. Now there is something given in your book, there are figures in your book, children, you have to go through it, okay, and understand the concept.